Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the James Bond Club podcast. I'm Kevin O'Callaghan.
And I'm Sean O'Hare.
I'm Andy Watson.
And I'm Michael Kerwin.
And you might notice we're missing somebody. Paul is away for this episode and has left the keys to us to have lots of fun while he's out. He's on a secret mission to Austria at the moment. So if you're around there somewhere, maybe you'll find him skiing, hanging around a chalet, who knows, but he's over there, and we'll see him back real soon. We'll try not to mess everything up while you're out, Paul. Don't worry about it. So what are we going to talk about today? Lots and lots to talk about. Do you remember the time when we didn't get much news on Bond and it was a bit of a dry spell? I think we're coming out at the end of that. So we've lots to cover since our last episode, but before I do that, first of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody out there for your comments and messages and support that we've had following the last episode, which was all about John Lennon and celebrating his life. The reception to that was really heartwarming, and I know a few folks have mentioned it as well in other mediums and online and so forth, and it means a lot to us. So I just want to say thank you for that. We're going to keep raising funds for the Irish Cancer Society. We want to kind of keep that momentum going for the rest of the year. So we're going to count on your support. So you're going to hear from us talking about it again and again and again and again. But it is very important. So when you're checking us out on Facebook or on Instagram or on TikTok or wherever you get your podcasts, do also look out for the Cancer Society. We'll have the links and the QR codes in there as well. So now it's been a busy couple of weeks on the old Bond front, guys. We've got a few things to get through. We're going to go through our View to a Kill screening. We've got first few chapters of a brand new James Bond book. How exciting. The Hook in the Eye and Mr. Benson. More Bond spin-offs. And I think we're going to talk about what we think about that. We've got soundtracks, models, games. What's going on? They'll be saying a movie next for all we know. Could they? So let's do that. Let's start with the View to a Kill. What's that?
I said, don't push it too far. Expecting a movie as well.
Listen, if I was expecting it this year, I might be pushing it too far. But it's funny how only recently they had the anniversary of Pierce Brosnan being announced as Bond all those many years ago, which was in June, which I kind of had forgotten about how they'd done that before summer. So you never know. Let's start with our View to Kill screening, because we had a screening there a couple of weeks ago as well as part of our the charity fundraiser for A View to a Kill. Sean, how did you find it? Good day, good fun. Any thoughts to that?
All of the above. Yeah, it was a great day. Really enjoyed getting down to Dublin again, down to UCD Cinema. Shout out to the guys down there, first of all, for hosting us. Once again, great job. Yeah, excellent day. Great to see another Bond film on the big screen. I have to say, A View to a Kill will be a guilty pleasure of mine. Great seeing it on the big screen. Definitely, even listening to the soundtrack during it was amazing. Turned up real loud, and I have to say, I really enjoyed it. But it was great to see a lot of the members down there for the day. We had a couple of new guys turned up for the first time to see a screening. Brilliant to see them. So long may that continue. Yeah, and we met afterwards, had a few beers, bit of crack at the pub around the corner. Chatted different things about Bond, new Bonds, the old films, how great Pierce Brosnan is, all different things. So all good. All in all, a great day's crack.
Wonderful. Andy, any thoughts to that? How you found the day? Any highlights in there?
Well, Sean's maybe took the words out of my mouth. As you probably know already, it is my guilty pleasure of a Bond film. If it's on, I'll watch it. I just love everything about it. And it was great to see it on the big screen again, and great to see the numbers there that we had. And again, as Sean says, it was nice to go and chat about it all afterwards in the pub.
Yeah, there was some good crack in the pub right afterwards, and it did go on. I think we covered everything. I think that was happening around then. We were kind of joking we'd have nothing to talk about, and voices were going to be breaking up at that stage. It's amazing. It's amazing the amount of things we can talk about. just to give a shout out to UCD as well for their help and their support with the movie as well. I know they're great friends and partners for us all in terms of doing these screenings. So thank you guys as well for all your help on that.
To say Owen and his team, they're excellent. They're brilliant.
Yeah, fantastic. Anything you noticed, actually, just quick before we move on? Did we notice anything new in the film? Because every time we do a big screening, and for anyone who hasn't been to a one of our screenings, it's a different experience when you see a classic Bond film on the big screen, and you tend to notice something new. And we back in the bar afterwards, there was a lot of talk of, did you see this or did you find that? So, guys, did you notice anything new there?
I wouldn't say it noticed it new, but it scared the life out of me was the bloody cat as Roger Moore's walking up the steps at Stacey's home. I nearly jumped a foot in the air when that bloody thing just it was that loud and just bang. I wasn't expecting it. I knew it was coming, but I may probably subconsciously knew it was coming. But yeah, that definitely woke me up if I wasn't already awake. To be honest with you, excellent. And the whole cinema sort of jumped. Was
I think that caught all of us, didn't it?
It did.
Oh God. No, very good, very good.
It was. I had not seen it on the big screen before. It was my I missed it when I went out on the 60th run, so it was good to see it on. It just has a different perspective, and if anyone has yet to come, and please do, we'll do more of these, and please come and trying to find, to say we new folks and all coming to see us, which was great on the day, and we hope to see them all again soon.
And here, just very quickly, we raised near enough £500 for the Irish Cancer on the day, so fair play to everybody who came along, donated. And the guys who didn't come and also donated is brilliant, and they're a great cause. And yeah, it was brilliant amount to raise.
Super, yeah, wonderful. Okay, so great fun at screenings, and actually, we had, just before we move on, I think what was even cooler was that we had folks from outside of Ireland coming in as well.
We did, yes.
And there was a bit of a comment about how you don't see many of these screenings happening across Europe. I think was said to someone I don't know who mentioned to me, which is even more exciting. To think of this as something that we're able to do here in Ireland and do it for a good cause as well. So it's a win-win really for us all.
Well, it is. We're very lucky.
That wants to come from wherever they are.
Yeah, definitely.
No, 100%, Andy. Yeah, no, we're very lucky that we have the partnership with UCD. We're able to run, we're doing the anniversary screenings each year, so we're running 4 or 5 films a year. So yeah, we're very lucky, and we're probably one of the few groups that are able to do it.
Super. Okay, let's. Like I said, there's lots to get through. There's lots of bits of news, and we want to kind of get some thoughts on a few things. So as we know, and if you haven't heard it already, we met Raymond Benson, and I still say this like a little bit of a fanboy. We met Raymond Benson, but we did, and we all got to chat with him a few episodes ago. So if you haven't heard it, go check it out. Go back and after this one, go check it out. It's a wonderful conversation with Raymond about The Hook in the Eye and about writing Bond and his experiences and the people he's met, and it's just wonderful. But we did want to touch upon the fact that now The Hook in the Eye is out. When we talked about it a few weeks ago, it was still to come. It's out, and the first couple of chapters are there, and I think we've a few more chapters, I think, almost breathing down our necks now. So
yeah, they are. Yeah.
Sean, you've been reading it. I know I've had a look at it too. What's your first impressions, I think, so far?
First impressions are, I can't believe we're reading a Raymond Benson novel in the James Bond universe. Brilliant. Very excited to finally be able to read it. I've read, as I say, the first 4 chapters. Interesting. It's taken me a wee bit of time to get used to reading in the first person, I have to say. I knew it was coming, but I just wasn't expecting just the way it's on the page. But yeah, definitely get you interested. Really interesting. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to give away too much here, but really interesting just the way Raymond has set it up. As we all know, it's in the timeline just after Live and Let Die. So yeah, we've just started with Felix's rehabilitation. That's all I'll say. I have to say, 4 chapters flew by. Definitely similar style of Fleming, as in short, sharp chapters. Definitely make you want to read on. So definitely looking forward to the next 4 chapters. I'm very interested, and I'm keen to read on, which is always a good sign.
It's quite breezy. That's kind of the word I felt reading it. It's very light. It's light. I know Raymond was talking about how Felix is a very different character to Bond and is more joie de vivre and out there to life, and he's coming from a situation at the beginning of the book. Again, it's like spoilers, folks, we can't say too much, but he's coming into it, and that was the one sense I came out of it. It's quite a breezy. It's you're definitely turning the page going, what happens next? I was surprised how quickly I had managed to get to the end of those first number of chapters, and there was more, and I thought, wow, okay, well, already. And I do like the idea. Actually, I was a little bit wondering about the serial idea, but I do like it because it makes it a bit easier to read, but also what's coming next. It's a bit of kind of following your streaming your book every week to see what the next episode is.
No, it is.
But yeah,
he said a lot of. He set it up lovely, just dropping in a few hints here and there, a few callbacks that you're going, oh, I know what you mean there, but also just the way that the fourth chapter ended, you're going, here we go. Please give us the next chapter. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, so we'll have that. So far the recommendation is good. Raymond, you be delighted to know we love it.
Definitely would, and look, I'll definitely say to anybody who's thinking about or maybe not sure about we're maybe touching the spin-offs a wee bit, but definitely give it a go. I'd recommend it.
Let's get on to the spin-offs, because I do want to ask everybody, Michael and Andy as well. On the back now, we kind of had all the excitement of The Hook in the Eye coming out, the serialization of it. We've had a few more announcements as well, as James Bond and the Secret Agent Academy was announced only there the other day. It's had, I think, and I don't think it's a surprise, depending on it. It's had a mix of opinions. I think that book, some are all for it, some are a little bit kind of, is it Bond? That's coming out soon. We also have Q Mysteries coming out later in the year as well. What's our thought, guys, on the spin-off books? Let's start with the idea of James Bond and the Secret Agent Academy, where he's an older agent. He's kind of training up the next generation. It's aimed at a much younger audience. It's kind of more of the, I don't know, is it 10 to 12-year-olds? I might be a little bit out there, but it's definitely at a younger age group anyway. And I suppose, if anything, it's an entry point for Bond. But Andy, any thoughts on that in terms of spin-offs, or where they're kind of seemingly taking the books these days?
I'll be honest, I haven't really thought too much about it, but even on your just explanation of it there, is it not a little bit Alex Rider-ish? The child spy?
Yeah.
And hasn't that not already been done?
Well, I might jump in there quickly, because I think we're sleeping a bit on a series of books which I think actually really enhances Bond's character if you read them, and that's the Young Bond books by Charlie Higson. So I think the idea of getting a younger Bond book out to kids, because I think I read that it's between 6 and 12-year-olds is what they're aiming for. So I think it's brilliant that they're finally making a book aimed at Andy. So he might be able to read it, which is fantastic, But with that being said, one of the things I'm also like a big fan of is Star Wars. And Star Wars are very, you mightn't think so, because people might just think Star Wars, they think movies, they think of the television. But quietly over the last kind of 10 years since Disney got Star Wars, they've released a bunch of incredible novels, and they range from general kind of adult novels, spy thrillers, which expand on the Star Wars universe, but also they release younger novels. So they call them kind of the middle grade novels. They have YA novels, and they have adult novels. And I think Bond doing something like that can only be a good thing. And if some guy is sitting there thinking, yeah, well, James Bond and the Secret Service Academy or whatever it's called, that's not my Bond. Well, it's not for you. It's for an 8-year-old. So you don't have to read it. But I think if you do have a young child and you want to get them reading, and you also want to introduce them to James Bond, I think it could be a fun little introduction to it.
No, it's look, my reaction to it, and then I'll throw it to you, Sean, as well. My reaction to it was, that's interesting. I think it's great that it introduces Bond to a whole new audience in a similar way that video games have done that for audience as well. I think if you ask many 8 to 12-year-olds these days who James Bond is, I think you probably get a little bit of a blank look unless they've been listening to their father or mother or grandparents or uncles going on about Bond from their own childhood. So it's interesting. I'm kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. I was looking at the Ian Fleming press release about it as well, and I think definitely the age group that it's going to be at. This is not James Bond as you've seen him before. It says so. There's your first warning for anyone who's looking, any purists looking for a Bond that's aimed at kids. Expect wacky gadgets, wacky lessons, and even wackier members of staff. So it's targeted to that audience, but like I say, it's all about literacy, and it's the challenge of introducing Ian Fleming's Bond, a brand that has transcended books and movies to a brand new audience, which is something they say is not to accept lightly. So, and I think it's kind of something we see a lot. We see it with the Q mysteries. I think is another one that had a little bit of a reaction online. It's not even out yet. I mean, we haven't read it. It could be. I mean, I'm looking forward to reading it again and seeing another take on it. We've had Moneypenny Diaries, we've had all manner of other kind of different types of books to it. And the Q Mysteries then from Vaseem Khan is all kind of pretty much wit, humor, and verb, as it says. He's vibrant and dynamic style to Q Branch, and how there's a bit of a different spin or a different take on it. But I guess it's interesting. I'd let everything have its day in the sun. Let's see what floats, I suppose, and let's see what sinks. And if it introduces it to a whole new audience, I'm all for it. We've got a new group learning about Bond. You've got that can only sustain it for the future. You've got a movie coming out that could be a little bit more, I don't know, family friendly, a bit more lighter. Who knows? And we could be in a different position in another couple of months. Sean, sorry, I'm going on there, but what do you make of it?
No. Again, pleasantly surprised when I seen it, when I read it first, going, "Oh, what is this here?" But I'm all for anything for the younger fan base to get involved. Yes, it's not James Bond is more like going to be like the trainer, coach, for want of a better word, but it's a way of getting younger fans in the James Bond universe, for want of a better word. And yeah, I'm all for it. I probably said it a number of times in different podcasts on here. The games used to be the entry point for young people. You know what? The novel's another great way, because you're not going to get a 8 to 12-year-old reading a Fleming novel, to be truthfully honest. Maybe one or two of them might, but the vast majority aren't. They might get involved in this here. And then that's a gateway into everything else, from the other, like the young Bonds, as Michael was saying, to there's movies, I don't know if they'll play the computer games as much, but like we'll probably touch it later on, there is a new game coming out. There's a lot of things seem to be happening in the background, planting a lot of seeds in different areas. And I do believe it's for the bigger push when a film is going to be going live, going to be released, so they get a lot of their ducks in a row. As you said earlier on, Kev, let's see what floats, let's see what sinks. Yeah, here, if it's going to be through the novels, I'm all for it. And as you were saying, you're 100% right. If you ask many 8 to 12-year-olds who's James Bond, you are going to get a lot of blank faces. Unless you're asking my two children, they know exactly what it is, but I'm brainwashing them. But
they're watching GoldenEye now, aren't they?
They are. I have to go on here. I have to hurry up here, lads.
The question Kev gave, though, does anyone have any other ideas of spin-off they would like? Because I think there's enough material in the Bond world where there's definitely ideas of spin-offs you'd like to do. Does anyone have any ideas of, even maybe not even just a character, but even a type of novel they'd like to see, whether it be, you have your spy espionage novel, any other type of thing you'd like to see the Bond novels take on?
Yes, I would love to see them doing James Bond's role in World War II. I'd love to see them sort of escapades, them sort of adventures that they had, that will form him into joining the 00 section. I'd love to see that.
Andy?
I've never really thought of it to any great degree, but actually, now Sean said that I think, because I do like World War II history and literature about it, that I think that would be a great thing. Yeah, putting him in the war wherever he was, whatever he was doing, how he got
Yeah.
where he got. Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Kev,
Yeah.
anything from you?
I love that idea. So, Sean, I think you need to write a letter to Ian Filming Publications right after this and pitch the idea, and we'll all throw in some help there. It's a cracking idea. I'm going to be a little bit more conservative, and I'm going to say I'd love to see a James Bond book, guys. We've had lots of different spin-offs. I do, at the time, like, where is Bond at the moment? We've had some great books about MI6 and the service and the agency, and then we've had apart from on His Majesty's Secret Service, I think was the last actual Bond book, so to speak. I'd love to have him back. It's great we're exploring this world. I think it's also going to be interesting when we get into Amazon and streaming, and imagine a series that's set in World War II, or the period. All of the various little things we've dreamt of over the years could be a little thread to pull. Either that or the James Bond cookbook, where we can all learn how to make an omelet. I think that would be class.
Well, here, Kev, who would you like to see as the next author? Would you like to see Charlie Higson stay on?
I would actually. I quite like Charlie, and I think he's done an awful lot in terms of literary Bond, and probably doesn't get as much praise for it in parts. And I think that's a shame, because he has done a lot. He loves the character. Clearly, he's always been quite engaging with it. So I think it'd be great to see if he could come up with something else, or even as Raymond Benson was saying to us, the idea of Felix and that spin-off was just something in his mind for a while. I'm sure there's a few thoughts out there that could turn into novels in the next few years. It's exciting.
That's good. Yeah, I like
if
that.
it was up to me, I'd pay serious money to just get Anthony Horowitz to look. Anthony, just I know you're writing your own books. Just stick to Bond, because he's the only author I've read who I read him because of Bond. So I read first Trigger Mortis, then Forever and a Day, which is my favorite Bond book, by the way. It's incredible. But he's the only author out of like that type of area where I read him because of Bond, but now I read him because he's him. So I have a bunch of his other books on the shelf. He has a really good Sherlock Holmes novel called The House of Silk. So if it was up to me, I would dump a truckload of money up to his door and just get him churning out Bond novels forever, because I am a huge fan of his recent work with Bond.
Right.
Can't argue
so
there.
There we go. It will be interesting, and we'll move on, but it'll be interesting, I think, with this young orientated Bond book series, in terms of getting familiar with James Bond, how that goes in a time where we're going to have a rebooted Harry Potter series that's also going to be grabbing that similar age group's attention and other things. So it's
100%.
It's exciting in a way to see that, but yeah.
And for people who like, with the Harry Potter TV show coming up, like, I have no doubt in my mind that's going to be the biggest television show of all time. Like, it's going to be up there with Game of Thrones in terms of cultural relevance. Because the movies are so massive now that you're getting a HBO series, it's going to be the biggest thing on television. And as much as some people might not like it, I think the people at Amazon will look at that, look at what HBO are doing, seeing they have a big IP in Harry Potter, and see, well, we have our biggest IP here is Bond. Why aren't we trying to do something similar? So I think that, even more so than trying to get the younger generation in, I think that even Harry Potter television show has a bigger effect than you might think on something like Bond and Amazon.
Very good point.
We shall see. We shall see. Okay, speaking of fresh starts, let's again, more news. Let's get into fresh starts in a slightly different way, which is 007 First Light. If you've been under a rock the last couple of weeks, I think this exploded. This came out late one night, and I saw the trailer and went, "Wow, look at that!" Lots of box ticks. Is based on the James Bond franchise. This tells an original narrative inspired by the novels and short stories, and the game will depict James Bond's origin story as he embarks on the mission he must complete to earn his license to kill. So, Michael, I'm going to ask you about games and stuff and so forth. But before we do that, Andy, you've seen the trailer, and gamers I know will look at this and go, is this and that the other? But what was your reaction to the trailer itself as someone who might kind of come at games in a slightly different way to others? What, did you warm to it? Did you like it? Or did you think, no?
Oh, like I say, I am in no way a gamer. So the game side of things left me behind a long time ago. But I have to say, I watched that trailer probably because it was posted that many times on our WhatsApp group that I thought, well, I've got to see what it is at least. Now, if it was a trailer for a film, I would have thought, could be quite a decent film. But as a game, like I say, I'm not the right person to ask about games because I really don't have any involvement in the gaming side of things at all. But as a film, I would have watched it.
What did you make of the look of Bond when you saw him in that trailer?
Well, as he will be for the character side of that game, young.
Yeah.
But there was a certain ruggedness to him as well, which I thought was quite good. Took a little bit of the super slickness away from it, but again, is that the sort of quality that it's going to be when it's a game? Is that because I don't know, or is the trailer going to be different?
So we wait for see. Sean, thoughts there on that, the game, that reaction?
Yeah, I loved it. It's a long time since I've watched a Bond trailer. I've been very excited, to be honest with you. Like the last one was No Time Today, even many years ago. So yeah, very excited. To the point where I'm winding or putting it back on. What's that watch he's wearing? What's happening? What did he say there? You know, there's a lot of stuff going on and going right. Once again, planting lots of seeds. And then I've seen stuff afterwards of making comparisons. You seem to be wearing a Casino Royale shirt, and there's a lot of maybe like Thunderball-esque type references. So, have to say, didn't expect it to drop so soon. I know there's a bit of a teaser was put out before, but I was not expecting to see something like that, to be truthfully honest with you. So yeah, pleasantly surprised, and got to spend more money when it comes out.
There was a lot of detail in it. I mean, when you make a good point in terms of the Casino Royale shirt or the Thunderball look or the the kind of Persuaders Aston Martin style car round that was there. The
Omega.
The Omega, obviously, and and of course the attention that got was something else in terms of. But even I saw something there. They IOI developers had put up even a post there today or a few days ago saying, here are our partners with this. Here's the, and we've got Oliver Brown, I think, are mentioned in there. You've got Jaguar, you've got Aston,
Coca-Cola.
You've got Coca-Cola. The level of detail that has gone into that is quite impressive for a game that looks like it could take all the boxes in terms of play and interaction.
Big time.
But Michael, I mean, I think we look at you as the person who's got his finger on the pulse in terms of gaming.
Yeah, like I wouldn't consider myself a hardcore gamer, but that is coming from the man who owns a PlayStation 5, a Nintendo Switch, and a gaming PC. I know people who are much more hardcore. I have a lot of friends who play, I would say, up to about 60 hours of video games a week, which I didn't even know there's that many hours in the week. To play video games is ridiculous. But I play a lot of video games, and this is one game that I've had my eye on for a very long time, considering it was announced in November of 2020, if I think, and it was just titled Project 007. And in that time, you've had, again, I bring it back to other franchises. You have Harry Potter released a game called Hogwarts Legacy, which was the best-selling game when that came out in 2023. That was massive. You have Middle Earth. They do kind of video games set in Mordor, where Sauron and stuff is, and they were very successful. Marvel has its Spider-Man games, Batman has the Arkham games, Star Wars has the Jedi Fallen Order, Survivor game, Star Wars Outlaws, Battlefront, which Battlefront 2 got a massive resurgence. That's one of the big gaming news stories over the last few weeks. So I think IO seem to have their finger on the pulse, putting out the Bond stuff now, because I think people are clamoring for a game like this. And I like what Kev said, is the attention to detail is IO Interactive, they're best known for the Hitman game series.
Yeah.
And their three most recent Hitman games, so Hitman 1, 2, and 3, are all like critically acclaimed darlings. And if you actually play the games, there's no real story to them. You just get sent on missions. And the idea is that each mission has various different ways to be completed. So you have your target and you have to kill them. You can either go up and shoot them. In one level, there's an exploding golf ball. You can drop stuff on their heads. Like, the amount of different ways to complete missions is massive. And I think that's one of the things they're going to bring to the game. I was reading is that if you go onto their website, it says complete missions your own way. So the idea of also replayability is going to be massive. But I also think it's interesting that, like, for I think a lot of people, this game is nearly as big as getting a new film. Maybe for us, a film might be bigger, but I know there are people out there who they kind of wait and see the film when it comes out and they don't really get excited and it just comes out. Whereas a game like this, they hear a game and they're very excited to go play it. And people I know who mightn't even be interested in Bond movies, they look at an IO interactive game, they look at the Hitman franchise and go, ooh, that looks interesting, you know? So there's a lot of really great layers. I love Kev's point of the attention to detail as well, because you could almost do a 2-hour breakdown of the trailer where you pick out the little Easter eggs. One of my favorites is they have the scar on Bond's cheek from the novels. Like, that's something that gives you the impression that these guys are here to play. They're not just turning up to the table and turning out a Bond game because it's going to make them a load of money. These guys are passionate and want to make a great game. So all of my boxes are ticked. I know there's a lot of people who have kind of mixed feelings on it, depending on how it looks, which I understand. And one of the things I also got from the trailer is that if you really think about it, they're just making the first Kingsman movie.
Yeah.
They're just making the first Kingsman movie where you take Bond as, you could say, a troubled youth like Eggsy. They get a mentor, which Galahad in Kingsman, Greenway in the new Bond one. You even have the scene where they're all around the office, and even the first Kingsman, they're all getting trained. So they're taking a lot of inspiration from that as well. But I love the first Kingsman movie, so I'm not complaining about that.
I wonder, did we see much of the game? I know we saw a lot of cutscenes, and in kind of in between the sections of it, and probably the closest I felt when I looked at the trailer of a gameplay was the Aston itself driving through the car and the plane going over it. Is
Yeah,
there more
100%.
to come, or are we just going to get hyped now until 2026?
That's true. I will say there was, judging from what I saw, there was a surprising amount of game elements, because in a lot of recent video game trailers, the trend has been to make a cinematic trailer, which this is, but you'll see at the bottom of the screen in a lot of game trailers saying this isn't in-game footage. This is completely rendered for a cinematic. Whereas if you look at the Bond one, these look like in-game cinematics, but also you can see Bond shooting, you can see Bond throwing a gun at someone, you can see Bond do all these things, and to me, from what I can see, that looks like in-game footage. So I would, like, as a gaming fan, I'm looking at that going, that looks brilliant. So, I'm not complaining about that. I'm very excited.
Is it something similar to the Hitman games, Michael, in terms of
Very,
what you've seen? Is it okay? Good.
very.
Well, that's a
Yeah,
good sign. Yeah,
it
happy days.
kind of. I imagine if you play the Hitman games, I imagine the feel of it will be the same. Because when you play a video game, I think the feel is a very important part of it.
Mhm.
Like how the movement feels and stuff, and what it's like to aim and stuff.
Yeah.
So I get a good feeling that this is just good. They're using the same engine that made the Hitman games.
Well, happy
So
days. Then. It's a good sign.
happy
Yeah.
days. Look, it's all looking up. I'm very, very excited.
Any thoughts, guys, on the nostalgia element? I know a lot of people, when they heard the Majesty's theme coming in that trailer, just suddenly went, "Oh, just here, take my money," and then some others just threw stuff at their phone screens, going, "No, this is not supposed to be." Any thoughts on this? I mean, again, when I come at this from the view of new books, younger audiences, introducing Bond to a whole new generation, and then bringing in the familiar. But any thoughts in terms of that nostalgia when you heard what did you think when you heard the Majesty's theme in that? Did you put goosebumps or did you go,
I was slightly going, oh, only because I'm going to go there. I think they use it wrongly in No Time to Die, so I was just going to keep it there. But it evokes. It's probably people like it, but like they could have played the Bond theme flat out, like same thing. I know they were, but yes, look here, it's under Magic Secret Service. Probably that's what they're looking for. I was like nostalgic for me. Like it's great to see. I haven't played like proper games in years, but I probably comment in the chat. It looks as if it's third person instead of first person shooter, and that's just come back to the pure GoldenEye days and everything else. But yeah, here, great to get excited about a game, to be honest with you. So yeah, I'm happy.
I will throw in before we go on again. Not only then did we get that trailer for First Light, but then there was a little bit of an extra teaser for the Hitman game, I think, in terms of Le Chiffre appearing as a baddie in
Yes,
full
100%.
Casino Royale mode. Any
Forgot
thoughts,
to
guys,
mention
there
that.
on that before we move on? Michael.
That's quite cool because it's basically just a Hitman level. So a lot of it is very similar. Like it is just Hitman, except they include Le Chiffre. And I didn't play it, but I watched a good few videos on YouTube about it. And from what I saw, it looks very Hitman. And it's cool that they actually got Mads Mikkelsen to come back and portray Le Chiffre. That's quite big. And if they have a pull like that, where they can get Mads Mikkelsen, who knows what other voice talent they'd be able to get for the new Bond game? Who knows? One thing I did find quite funny though was how they did the poker in the game. Was pretty terrible, but I thought it was kind of funny at the same time how it worked because I dabble in the bit of poker every now and then, and I was looking at the game and I was like, oh, that poker looks quite dodgy. But other than that, it's fantastic.
Do you think it's a Casino Royale level? Is that really what it is, what we saw there? Because it just looks so familiar when we saw that bit of the clip.
It's a Hitman level with a James Bond skin on it, is what you'd call it almost. Is that I imagine that they probably came up with the idea as a marketing trick because they haven't really released much Hitman stuff lately. So I think it was probably a few months ago they thought, do you know what? When we release the Bond trailer, we'll release this as well, and like it'll play it. It plays into the marketing, I think, anyway. Which I'm not complaining. You get Mads Mikkelsen back as Le Chiffre, so it's fantastic.
Right.
Can
So
I
we're all
ask
buying
all
the
of you-
game when it comes out. We're
Oh,
all getting
100%.
First Light, guys. Yeah.
What I might ask all of ye is back in the old heyday of GoldenEye 64 and kind of leading up around that time, what are your video game memories of Bond? Because I only have like a handful. So when I was young, I played like Agent Under Fire and Nightfire, but I wasn't like when I was 6 and 7, but I wasn't very good at video games, so I kind of just ended up running around getting killed a lot of the time. So a lot of my gaming heyday, there was no Bond game coming out. What was it like for you guys? I suppose growing up when there were Bond games coming out.
I'll have to defer to Kev and Sean for that one, because I say I've never really been a gamer. So,
Even Pong back in the day, no.
well, I was quite good at Pong, and then I did have a PlayStation 1 with, what is it, the McRae Rally game, and that's about it.
Oh,
Mm.
Very Rally, yeah. Very good. What about you, Sean? You seem to be, I think, a bit of a video
Yeah,
game man.
I was years ago. Really, GoldenEye was really the first sort of game that got me really into computer games, to be truthfully honest with you. We got Santa said before Santa brought along N64, the GoldenEye, and sort of got hooked from there. And then like that was at a great time because like after that, like we had an N64, I didn't have PlayStation, so I missed out on Tomorrow Never Dies. But like then you had The World Is Not Enough come out, and then you had Agent Under Fire, you had Everything and Nothing. There was so many games coming out. Like EA sort of took it over then. They were turning out a brave few games. There was the James Bond racing game as well at that stage of the PlayStation. So yeah, it was a great time. And like, the thing probably, I know we're all streaming now, but like it was great even just getting a few mates around who had an N64 controller and playing the 4-player or 2-player. So it'd be great. And I'm assuming this new game is going to have a lot of streaming where you can play multi games and all. So yeah, have to say a great. I was probably the right age, to be honest with you. I was just getting into gaming, and then obviously getting into James Bond, so I was very lucky. Probably at the same time, you had Medal of Honor, you had Call of Duty all starting coming out at that time too. So I was sort of spoiled for choice. Yeah, spoiled for choice,
Wonderful
but
stuff.
great memories. Great memories.
Kev, did you ever dip your toes in the gaming industry?
I might have. I can go back to the Commodore 64 if you want, and License to Kill on a tape, loading it up. I think if I have a vague memory of a Bond game anyway, and I'm sure it was License to Kill in '89. Of a little pixelated guy going through the motions of it on a 64. But like, I think when I was we were a Nintendo house years ago, and we had the NES and the Super. We were very lucky we had the Super Nintendo, and then I never actually had an N64, but a friend of mine did. So that's how we got into GoldenEye, because they were playing that around the house at the time. Other games like Doom, I know was big in multiplayer and networking about the place, but GoldenEye just, it's a great game. And since then I always had something. When I used to be traveling, I'd have a Game Boy or a DS or something. So there was Agent of Under Fire, clearly, was another one. I have such a fondness, and it was a bit of a funny odd game, but such a fondness for From Russia with Love on the GameCube, just because Sean Connery is back, and it's so amusing to me to hear a very older Sean Connery playing a 30-something James Bond on screen. But yes, we're sounding very much, yes, like that. But yeah, I love that. Everything or Nothing, as well, is probably, and the last one I think I probably played was GoldenEye Rogue Agent, I think, which was on Nintendo DS, and haven't really gone at it since. So I'm kind of, we're at the stage now where we're back to games again in this house. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what First Light is like when it does come out next year, and I'll probably have to go back to GoldenEye and get some practice in, I think, really.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And what I will say to anyone listening to this, this might be a bit redundant, considering the people who listen to this probably also watch Calvin Dyson on YouTube. But he is the king of Bond games. If you want
Yeah.
any detail on any Bond game ever, go to Calvin Dyson's YouTube channel, and he probably has a 2-hour video breaking down the game. So if you've ever been into that, I'm sure you've all watched Calvin before, but whenever new content comes out for the new Bond game, I am frantically refreshing his channel to see what he thinks about it, because he's just that type of guy.
Brilliant.
Right. We'll loads on games, and more to come on games, I think, over the coming months for sure. I'm going to pivot again now. There's all this talk about how new beginnings and fresh starts, but actually we still have to get into the what next, and we get into the cinema side of things. And I know, Andy, you went and saw Mission Impossible, Andy, and you had some thoughts, I think, there in terms of Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, and Bond. Sean, I think you also caught it. I haven't seen it yet, which is terrible. I've been too busy reading The Hook and the Eye to get there, but I will right that wrong soon. But we wanted to talk a little bit about the whole dynamic, because, of course, Mission Impossible comes out, and there's this comparison and this comparison and this comparison. But Andy, kick us off there in terms of what your observations were from Mission Impossible and how it relates perhaps to Bond of the future.
Yeah, I think in relation to Bond versus Mission Impossible, shall we say, there's almost as many similarities as there are differences. You've got to look at like Mission Impossible and James Bond. The two pillars of the spy genre. But they reflect different eras, different tones, different cultural sensibilities. Like tonally, James Bond is very era-based. It's had an era-based evolution. I think Connery's was very Cold War. You've got the swagger, masculinity. Moore was a bit more of the charm, the gadgets, and the fantasy. Dalton, a bit. It pains me to say it, but it was grittier. It was more grounded. That was reflective of maybe a bit of post-Vietnam cynicism. Brosnan, slick, tech forward, Cold War, a bit of the excess from the Cold War. And then obviously we've got Craig with a post 9/11 realism. When you take that to Mission Impossible, their content through the early De Palma film, it was a little more of a cerebral film. But then the franchise quickly evolved into like a high octane, spectacle driven espionage. So you've got the differences there. The tone of a Bond film, it fluctuates from suave fantasy into a gritty realism. But at its core, Bond's about the elegance under fire, about state service and he's always got that bit of an internal conflict. Whereas Mission Impossible, the tone focuses more, I think, more on the tension, the precision, and the physical stakes. Bond often lacks Bond's political or emotional introspection. I would say Mission Impossible leans more into paranoia, betrayal, and funnily enough, the impossible odds of it all. I would say Bond as a character, he as Judi Dench put it better, he's a blunt instrument for the state. But he's often wrestling with duty versus his personal morality, whereas Ethan Hunt, he's less psychologically explored, but his loyalty is defined with to his team. Everything is around Ethan Hunt is around the team, his improvisational genius, and another part of him is just the sheer willpower. So that's how I would say that tonally, the similarities and differences there. If that made any sense whatsoever.
Made total sense in terms of the differences. What do you think? Is there stuff that we can learn? If you're talking now in Amazon Towers and writing out planning the new series, is there things to learn from Mission Impossible, or is it something we should just forget it, move on, to come up with something new or something fresh? What are your thoughts on that?
I think what Bond 26 should definitely not copy from Mission Impossible is that I don't think they should go for the full action machine. I think Bond he shouldn't try to match the relentless action of a Mission Impossible or Tom Cruise's defying stunts all the time. I think Bond, it's not about topping a halo jump or a motorcycle cliff dive. There's more of an elegance about him, a mood, maybe even the spycraft to a degree, maybe that as much as the spectacle. I don't think they should over rely on team dynamics. I think they maybe went a little bit too far with that in No Time to Die. Bond isn't Ethan Hunt. I think the 007 brand for me works better when he stands apart, standing alone. His isolation, that's part of the mystique. And I think, the team elements like Q and Moneypenny, they should support, yes, but I don't think they should become dominant within it. I don't think we shouldn't really ignore the political or the cultural context either. because, like I say, Mission Impossible largely avoids real world politics. Bond, if you think that it engages with things that are happening in the world, Skyfall, Casino Royale, they succeeded by tapping into contemporary themes, aging spies, surveillance, betrayal, national ideals. So it works for Mission Impossible, but not necessarily for Bond. I definitely think they shouldn't lose the British identity.
Hmm.
Mission Impossible, that's like international and culturally neutral. Whereas Bond, I think part of the Bond brand is the fact that he's quintessentially British. And I don't think that they should sacrifice the character for the action. Ethan Hunt works, as the fact that he's like an avatar of action. Bond, I think, needs to be more layered, a bit more conflicted. And I think Bond 26 needs to explore the identity of Bond, especially post Craig. But without becoming emotionally hollow or overly action filled. That needs the action, but I think we need to have a good story with it as well.
And if you want to hear Andy's TED talk further, which I think is incredible, I love
I'm up
hearing
for
all
it.
this. The
I'm up
research
for it.
on into this is top notch. I'm riveting to hear that, because this is half stuff I didn't even think about. Like, I just watched Mission Impossible and just that's quite fun. It's Tom Cruise jumping on a plane and but in reality, I think like Andy raises some like incredibly important points. Like, so I suppose like the idea of even saying like Bond is probably he's more than just the stunts, I think is quite a big. It's something I definitely agree with. But then you also think like Bond was also at the forefront of stunts for a long time. Like, you look at Spy Who Loved Me, you look at him jumping off the mountain side with the Union Jack. You look at Man with the Golden Gun with the spiral jump. So they definitely shouldn't completely go away from that side, which they won't.
Oh no,
But
I don't think they
keeping
should promote the
yeah.
whole film on a stunt. Like,
on a stunt, yeah,
the whole
100%.
of Dead Reckoning or Final Reckoning was wholly promoted on the motorbike stunt.
Yeah. Yeah, the
Whereas
motorbike stunt
I
did
think that it
feel
should be a
big.
part
Whereas
of
I
it,
think
but not the whole of it.
you're absolutely right, though. Like, Bond as a character is more interesting than I think Ethan Hunt as a character. And that's nothing against Tom Cruise. Like, what Tom Cruise does for Mission Impossible is incredible in its own way. And if you look at the series of Mission Impossible, there's no real, other than maybe two, there's no real bad Mission Impossible movie. They're all, I'd say, good to incredible on like a level of Fallout, which is probably one of the best action movies of all time.
Yeah,
But definitely, I think there's a lot like Bond can learn in terms of maybe creating that kind of big cinematic moment, but also stay away from kind of making the whole franchise about that one thing, which Mission Impossible kind of does seem to be like. There's a lot of people, when they think of Mission Impossible, they don't think about, say, Ethan Hunt's marriage to, is it Michelle Monaghan he's married to? Julie?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
No one really ever thinks of that. They all just think
No.
Tom Cruise hung onto the side of a plane once. Whereas when you think Bond, you don't think of just the stunts, you think of him as a character, which I think is very
But I
important.
think it's as well, if we think culturally within the films, in the time that of the 8 or 9, 8 is it Mission Impossible films, there's been exactly the same number of Bond films.
Yeah.
You don't hear people saying, "Oh, we haven't had enough Mission Impossible. Where's the next Mission Impossible coming from?" Whereas we're always hearing, there hasn't been a Bond film for 4 years. Where's the next Bond film coming from?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's been exactly the same amount of films in the same time frame.
I want to bring Sean in here though, because I think Sean is the guy I know here who is also a big Mission Impossible fan, and he got to see it a few days early even.
Yeah.
So I was very envious of that. What did you think of the actual movie? Not comparing it to Bond, but just as a film, what did you think of Final Reckoning?
I thought it was excellent. I really enjoyed. I've seen it 3 times now. That's how much I like it. Yeah, I thought it was an excellent film. different tonally from other Mission Impossible films, and I don't want to say too much. I'm assuming most people have seen it, but obviously Kev, put on mute, put everything off.
Not
Really
listening. La,
enjoyed
la,
it.
la,
I have
la,
to
la,
say.
la.
I enjoyed the whole story. The first time I watched it, I thought one or two pieces was a bit long, but seeing it the second time, it all just made complete sense to me, to the point where I actually went back again. I was enjoying it that much. Excellent. I'm a firm believer that it won't be the last one. The way they've done it, the way they've worked it, but falling back very quickly, just it's a different type of a film, and Mission Impossible is a different type of a franchise. Yes, they're all in the action sort of universe, but Bond and Mission Impossible, in my mind, can sit there and they can do their own thing, and I will gladly go and watch them and enjoy them. I'm a fan of that sort of action spy genre anyway, but do you know what? After coming out of the cinema, seeing Final Reckoning, I was going, I need a Bond film coming soon. I want to walk out of the cinema after a Bond film with that. I came out of that cinema buzzing and couldn't wait to talk to people, but couldn't talk to people. You know, that sort of way. I want that for my Bond sort of fandom, if that makes sense. I know it's coming. It will happen, but Mission Impossible has been probably a bit more in the forefront over the last couple of months than Bond has been, purely because there's a film coming out. Like, I have the soundtrack on 24/7. Again, brilliant soundtrack, but it's just I want to get back into that way with Bond. I want to have that sort of big event coming up that we can all chat about. We can all go and watch. I might have to go and watch it again, right? I need to talk to you again because have you missed this bit? You know, I want that for the Bond franchise moving forward, and I hope we're going to get it. But it's just a pity that we're waiting that wee while longer. But look, Mission Impossible
I,
is filling that void for me at the minute.
I think me and Sean are going to start the Mission Impossible fan club. Adjacent to the James Bond Club Ireland, there should be Mission Impossible Club Ireland. We're very,
Yeah,
very
MICI.
passionate about it. Yeah,
Mm.
unbelievable.
MICI. There we go. There we
One
go.
thing
There's our offshoot.
yeah. One thing I want to say very quickly,
Copyrighted.
Sean. Copyrighted. One thing I want to say very quickly to Sean and Andy, because Kev, you haven't seen the movie. But did you feel that in one of the ways all the Mission Impossible movies, especially up until about 4, all had their own kind of distinct tone because of the directors, you know, everything felt its own unique thing. And what I liked about this movie, which I don't think a lot of people are talking about, is this one, more than feeling like a spy thriller, felt like a disaster movie.
100%
So,
Armageddon type stuff.
so you look
Oh,
at other Mission Impossible movies, which have big, you know, world-shattering events happening in them. They all still feel maybe on a smaller scale, more espionage. This felt like we're calling in Bruce Willis to drill a bomb into the comet. Like, it felt
yeah.
that level of stakes, which is something I really liked for a movie called The Final Reckoning. Like, I was a big fan of the disaster vibe. What did you guys think of that?
Yeah, I have to say, within the first 2 or 3 minutes, you knew you were watching a different type of a film. But I have to say, it was a nice change in tone, a nice shift that I was all in for it, and to the point where I don't want to say too much here, but there was a couple of times the film was going, "What were they going to go here? How? Oh, they've gone here. Okay." I actually enjoyed that. It's a long time since I've been to a film that you're wondering what way is this going to end. You know what sort of way it's a strange feeling, but I actually enjoyed it. I have to say I liked it, but I liked it because it was different tonally. I spoke to a number of different people going, "This isn't a Mission Impossible film. I'm not sure about this," but I liked it. I have to say I really enjoyed what they did with it. I have to say.
Andy?
I hadn't really thought of it as the disaster movie as such, so that's given me something else a different angle to think about when and if I or get around to watching it again. Yeah, I think that could give me maybe a different perspective on it. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed the film, and but it's hard to give the opinion without giving spoilers as such.
Yeah,
That
no,
is
no.
true,
I'll look surprised when it happens. Don't worry.
Yeah, but like I say, I'm not a huge fan of non-human main villains, for want of
Mm.
if that putting that
That is
that way.
that makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense. All right.
You're not a nanobot fan, Andy, no?
Not quite. No.
No.
Just a,
Andy's
just an
going to come on
old-fashioned
here
let
and
me punch a human guy.
can't wait for Andy to come along and slander iRobot with Will Smith. That movie.
Now, look, we've only just paid off the last lawsuit. Let's not get down this, all right? We've just cleared that bill.
Well, here, can
Well,
I just
I'm only-
end?
I'm on-
Go ahead,
I was
Sean.
just going to say, I went the third time and seen it in 4DX, and that was a proper experience. I have to say that it was amazing. It was probably a great film to see it in that sort of a setup, but to the point where going, I need to come back for the James Bond film to watch this. It was a great experience. First time I've been there, and I would definitely recommend it. It was excellent.
I don't know. Did they do 4DX out of the border? That might be a Northern Ireland only thing. I'm not too
Yeah,
sure.
it's Cineworld up in the Odyssey, or what they
Very
call the
good.
SSE now. Yeah, I would definitely recommend, to the point where I'm near enough jotting out that there's a Formula One movie coming out, there's a new Jurassic Park
yes.
film coming out, there's a Superman film coming out. Never mind, so I'm going, oh, I can be spending a lot of money just to see these films. So, yeah, definitely recommend that. It was.
Okay.
I don't want to say anything because I will spoil it, but there was one part of the film where it was on a roller coaster. To be honest with you, it was excellent. Very good.
Right. I'm gonna move quickly on because my goodness, we're
Sorry.
well over time as it is, and
Yeah.
our listener needs to move on to other things, so we won't keep them delayed much longer. Listen, before we go, guys, we want to talk about a little bit about collectibles and records, because again, more announcements. We're going to have to do maybe 2 podcasts a week at this stage for the amount of announcements that are coming on here. But La La Land announced bring out the Goldfinger on LP. I immediately went, oh, it's just brilliant. Just get me at it. With some releases on CD as well, which we're looking for. Majesty's Secret Service coming out, and we have a new Daniel Craig figure. Was also revealed and re-revealed probably a little bit there the other day on that. I'm going to ask you, Sean, because I know you love the soundtracks. So I guess, listen, you're queuing up outside the store already, waiting for those to come out, yeah?
Yeah, oh, big time. Yeah, that was a great, probably one of the best announcements of the recent Bond announcements. La La Land's been doing a lot of work over the last number of years in terms of releasing the full scores on CD, and there's been a lot of sort of people in the community wondering when or if they will ever look at doing them on the vinyls, and they have now gone there and they're releasing Goldfinger. The best part, I think, was obviously getting Goldfinger on vinyl, but they're also going to be releasing a soundtrack, whether via vinyl or CD, every 6 weeks in the near future, which is, pardon the pun, music to my ears. But it's I can't actually. I more have, going to be sacrilege here. I more have been collecting the CDs, but here, take my money now. I was up early the Sunday morning to pre-order Goldfinger. I cannot wait for Majesty's Secret Service coming out.
Yeah.
I'm praying for a full release of GoldenEye. 30th anniversary. Give us a View to a Kill. Give us Thunderball.
Give us Thunderball, I say.
They're
yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
They are coming, and I can't wait. This is brilliant news, and probably the best bit of Bond news over the last while. I've been very excited about. Love it.
Yeah, we'll work out your 6-week schedule there, Sean. There might be one ready for the actual anniversary of GoldenEye.
This is it.
I've never heard someone so excited to hear Eric Serra's music, but we found the man.
Well, it's funny. It's funny. Sean and me were chatting one day, and we were on about Gold. I was on about David Arnold and Tomorrow Never Dies soundtrack and how much I love it. And I got a car. It was the first thing I played in the car was a Backseat Driver, and I was like, that's it. The car is now christened. We can drive wherever we want. But Sean was talking to me about GoldenEye at the time and Eric Serra and all of the cues, and I was listening away. And I was kind of yeah. But sure enough, about a week later, I was in the car playing it really loud, as if I was driving around the hills of Monaco, looking for some cyclists to push over out of the way. So, whereas it's infectious, is what I'm saying, and be careful talking to Sean, because you too might be downloading some Eric Serra for your for your car or your phone or whatever soon enough.
Yeah,
The thing
it's
is,
the
you
future,
can
lads.
enjoy a soundtrack and not overly like a film. Like I love
Yeah.
the No Time to Die soundtrack. I think
Yeah.
that's right up there as a phenomenal soundtrack to listen to. But I'll not rush back to watch the film.
Fair point. Yeah.
Is
There's
there
a
any other?
ranking.
Oh, yeah. There's probably a lot of rankings you could probably do with soundtracks that would differ completely. Like comparing your,
Yeah.
imagine comparing your soundtrack ranking to your film ranking, and how much that could differ.
There's
That's
the
pretty cool.
homework right there. Yep.
Homework right there. What I was going to say, is there any collectibles here? People would like to get, whether it be maybe more propped collectibles, because I know Factory Entertainment did a lot of those, back a good few years ago. You have your soundtracks, you have your figures. One thing I am incredibly keen on getting more of is I would love to see more Lego Bond. That I think would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
yes.
is there any collectibles here people have been fantasizing or dreaming of?
I
Yes.
love a prop. I love a prop, but I got this on eBay and it makes me smile. And I'm sorry if you're listening to this on the podcast, you won't be able to see what I'm holding up. But to those on YouTube, I have Colonel Lewis Toro's ID badge from Octopussy there, and there's
Excellent.
the whole thing. And just when I look at that picture, I mean, you cannot help but smile. And I'll put it up on online and on Bond in Color of Roger Moore dressed up as Colonel Lewis Toro. And I love little things like they don't take up much room. You get it for someone made it. I don't know. It just made a version of it, and they just did something like that that brings me joy. I'm all for it. So I love a good little prop and a little nod. So
Brilliant.
more, please.
Love it. I found something similar, and Calvin Dyson. I should stop watching his videos because he has I can just see it up in the corner. I think it's the GoldenEye key that I want so badly,
Yes.
and then he's got a Moonraker laser as well. And I'm going,
Moonraker gun.
ah,
If you just go
and
on like
the-
Factory Entertainment's
you know,
website, they have
I-
so many cool different things. I think the
I don't
ultimate
want to
one
go on
for
to
the,
it, Michael. I don't want to go on to because
Yeah.
that's spending a fortune.
for the longest time, I feel like the ultimate James Bond collectible for anyone besides a fully operational Aston Martin DB5 would be the Golden Gun prop they released.
Yeah.
I feel
Oh,
like
yes.
that was the big one people wanted. Now,
Yeah.
I don't have one. I know a few people who do own one, but stuff like that I think kind of is really, really cool. Definitely in the collecting world.
There's always the Solex agitator there for out there too.
Yeah.
I know.
And
Actually, we
admire
might
it
end
for
on this. We might end on this. If you could have one gadget in James Bond's arsenal for everyday use, what are you picking?
His coffee machine at 11 a day.
Coffee? Yeah, that's
that all it does.
That's a fantastic one.
It'll have to be a watch. It'll be a watch. I don't care. It'll be a watch.
I was thinking maybe the Buzzsaw watch could be a pretty good one because it has the magnet in as well. So you have
Brilliant,
like it's quite the brilliant little gadget there. Like think of the amount of little things that just need to be cut every day, and you just take out the watch and
You just couldn't be bothered going over to the drawer to get a spoon. You just click the wee thing, and the magnetic comes on.
Yeah.
The spoon.
I'd love, and if you're online, you see as an account making the mine who makes the mines from GoldenEye, makes replicas of, and you can order and you can get your own little mini version of the mines using GoldenEye. He's working on a Living Daylights keyring finder bomb.
Seen that? Yeah, seen that. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah,
I love that. I love that. Find McKee's and also explode the whatever. It's just decap. Was it stun anyone? A normal stun a normal person. I'd love something like that. I love the little things. I think they really kind of just brighten the day.
If you could have it and if it would work, I would love just that tiny little rebreather that he has for when he's swimming.
That's a big one. That the rebreather, a workable rebreather would be, I would say, revolutionary. It would be incredible.
Let's wrap it up on that, because everyone needs to go home and get themselves rested, because there's more movies and games and books and everything coming out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Michael, Sean, Andy, thank you so much for all of that. We could carry on. Maybe we should do an extra podcast just to keep going on about it. Thanks everyone. Don't forget, check us out. James Bond Club Ireland, JBCI, are on Facebook. Where are we? We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok.
Yeah.
We're on YouTube. We're on your podcasts. We're everywhere, and the Irish Cancer Society as well. So I'm going to say goodbye. Michael, you're going to say
goodbye,
and Sean is going to say
cheerio, everybody.
And Andy's going to say
goodbye, but we will return.
We will return.